You are about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating talk radio. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Doctor, tell me true. What's a heart like mine supposed to do?
All right, we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. 1-877-Doc-Dahlia, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So, a little bit of a shocker, although it shouldn't have even been this close, but Francesca Hong, the very widely anti-American, anti-Thanksgiving one day, loves Thanksgiving the next, Hassan Piker groupie, lost to candidate David Crowley in Wisconsin, which was supposed to be a litmus test for how, especially in the Midwest and in Wisconsin, of how the progressives would do. Especially with El Sayed winning in Michigan, over the Michigan primary. Again, very narrow margins. But David Crowley, who the governor Evers actually supported and dropped out of the race, and thank God came back in to go up against Hong, wins by very small, I think 0.45 percentage points. Similarly, as in Michigan, no runoff. So David Crowley gets to advance. Francesca Hong loses and goes back to either not celebrating or celebrating Thanksgiving. But what's really telling about this is how divided the Democrats are repeatedly, especially in states where, I mean, New York, California, they're a lot more predictable in terms of how left-leaning they may go. But Wisconsin and Michigan, where you would think the moderate Democrats would have such a resounding lead, razor thin. And so it's, I mean, are the Democrats happy with this? Is this who they want representing them? Francesca Hong? 311,475 people voted for her compared to David Crowley, 315,235. So we're talking of a difference of about 3,700 votes. 300,000 people in Wisconsin, for sure, wanted what Francesca was spewing. That's a lot of people, and it's frightening. And you just kind of wonder, it's interesting because somebody asked me who would be for defund the police and no jails and forget about the presidency and the Senate and who would be for that? Why are there people like that out there? And I likened it to those people that sit and watch the airplanes land and you hear them go crash, crash, crash. We have a nice, beautiful area where we get to see in my neck of the woods airplanes land. And I love watching planes and all. And you hear people wish for the plane to turn into a fireball and kill everybody on board. These people exist. It's interesting. I've been watching a lot of those history series, on Thomas Jefferson and Washington and Abraham Lincoln. Politics was always ugly. And you had during the American Revolution, Americans go, no, British are fine. There's nothing, we don't need our freedom. We don't need to be, if we left it up to them, we would still be colonies of Great Britain. I mean, thank God somebody had some common sense. And so I think there's individuals out there that love anarchy, that just love to disagree with whoever, whatever the current administration is or the current thinking. And as I've also said, I think a lot of people are really, really displeased with the Democrats in general because of all the BS that happened during the Biden years. So when you saw some of the more moderate Democrats displaced, if they were the whole time going, yeah, Biden's good, he's strong, he's our man, he's our, and they're like, what are you, are you high? I mean, that obviously didn't help. And also, maybe you have other people going, look, I got nothing to lose. I'm not making money. I don't know if I'm going to have a job in the next year or two. They're offering free stuff. I have nothing to lose. That's what they're thinking. That actually is why communism and fascism rise, because you have people with such complacency where they think, you know what, whatever, it could only go uphill from here, and they don't realize that it could go downhill. And it just really blows my mind that people who have never lived in a socialist regime or a communist regime or were ever oppressed is actually asking for those sorts of things. It's ridiculous. So, I know Republicans are mixed on this, because if Francesca Hong won, they think that would have been a very easy win for Tom Tiffany, who's going to be running for governor. But he beat out Andy Mansk yesterday. But I just think the Democrats need to kind of figure out what exactly they are about. It's interesting to see the Jewish population. Many of the Jews I know have been very Republican, because of, you had the Barry Goldwater, you had Nixon's very pro-Israel stance, you had Clinton's pro-Israel stance, you had Reagan's pro-Israel stance, and Clinton was more of a moderate Democrat. But you saw that Henry Kissinger, you saw that the Republican side wanted to ensure that nothing happened to Israel, wanted to ensure Israel as an ally and protect it. And so now you're starting to see Jews go, well, I don't know if I should still be a Democrat. Well, if your Democratic Party, right, is siding with Hamas, I don't know why you're still Democrat. That's not the safest place to be. Senator Lindsey Graham's sister gets to move forward in a runoff. Apparently, she didn't get the majority needed to secure the Republican nomination, but I think she and Ralph Norman are moving forward to runoff. And so that's going to be very interesting there. Mike Lindell lost his primary in Minnesota to Representative Lisa DeMuth. I'm not surprised with that. And she'll be up against Klobuchar, I believe. So we'll see what happens with that governor race. Don't go away. We'll be right back. 1-877-DOC-LA.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hi, it's Mark Falter, host of the Financial Fitness Show. I strongly believe that no one should ever pay 1 penny more in taxes than they are legally obligated. Unfortunately, for most hardworking Americans, this just isn't the case. Why? Because most people spend more time planning next weekend's getaway than trying to ensure they're going to pay less in taxes. My financial fitness team has put together some materials that I know are going to help you. It's the Tax Savings Kit. Tax Savings Kit includes 3 things: free tax analysis, top 10 ways to pay less in taxes, and an investor's guide to taxes. Now, how do you get it? Simple. 866-764-2635. Again, 866-764-2635. I'm Mark Falter. This is Financial Fitness, making personal finance profitable.
are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877 Dr. Dahlia, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer. And big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So earlier this year, Trump signed an executive order entitled Protecting Children from Chemical and Surgical Mutilation. And yesterday, he announced that he is implementing a rule that ends the use of federal Medicaid and CHIP funding for gender-affirming care for children and youth. This includes puberty blockers, hormones, surgical operations, and other treatment. Gender-reaffirming surgeries are rare among minors, but we have had children who have lost their breasts and have gone through changes and then regretted it. So I agree that, children can change their mind. Children cannot give informed consent. Just because somebody identifies as something other than their biological sex doesn't necessarily mean they want to go through the medical risks and then be on suppressive therapy for life. So these are kids. Adults could do whatever they want, but with kids, and as I've said, this was kind of ironic that this was the movement of the day when for years we all fought against gay conversion therapy of kids, where you have a child who may be gay and you're trying to force them in classes and therapy and medications to change them to something they're not. Then all of a sudden, in the 2020s, we're like, oh, yeah, we can. We could throw any treatment at them to change them and force them into a different box. No, if it was cruel to do it for sexuality, it's also cruel to do it for biological changes. It's really, really difficult on that kid. I think close to 4,000 children have undergone medication gender-affirming care in the last decade. That's a lot of kids being affected. Now, I know somebody could say, oh my God, they're going to stop puberty blockers. If a child needs it medically, if a child has precocious puberty, where they're going through puberty earlier, their medications they still have access to those. But it's if, I don't want to be who I am and I want to alter my physical appearance, I want to alter my voice, I want to alter my biology, the government funding won't be there, which I think a lot of people agree with. This Medicaid and CHIP funding could go to a child with cancer, could go to a child with sickle cell. Now, if the state wants to pay for it, if California wants to use their money, they still can. But from a federal standpoint, federal funds won't go for that. And again, this isn't, when they say trans kids care, okay, people think, oh my God, well, these kids won't get their ear infections or their strep taken care of. They will. This is, are we going to start to affect and prevent them from going through puberty and getting their muscle mass and getting their bone density and getting their height and getting their hair distribution or their fertility? One thing that this really stinks of is eugenics. So in the olden days, if a society didn't want you to reproduce, they would sterilize you. If you were a criminal, if you had mental illness, if you were a Jew, this is what eugenics would do. And just because a child might want to be a girl or a boy doesn't mean they don't want to have kids later. They may still want to have children. That's their American right. And you're going to screw with that? Just doesn't make sense. So the gender affirming care includes medical treatments that would affect their biological changes. Now, what about the mental health? So, if you have a child with gender dysphoria, if you have a child with gender dysphoria, they will still get care in terms of how to mentally deal with that, because a child waking up saying, I'm in the wrong body, I have to be out of this body and my body has to be different, that child needs help. They're still going to get that care. But if a child says, look, I want to go through the process of thinking like a girl and being a girl, the federal funds don't go for that. So, it's interesting because CNBC says gender affirming care is supported by major medical organizations as safe as effective when following clinical guidelines, as well as positively received by patients. Yet in the UK, no, they banned it in youth. And now remember, they have a socialized system, so they don't really have private insurance. So all their medical funding is from the government. Okay, studies have shown that it could be harmful, that there's risks. There's also studies showing that a lot of these kids change their mind. They change their mind. What do you do then? How do you get that back? Now, somebody could say, well, Dahlia, if you reverse the puberty blockers, they'll go through puberty, then right then and there. Okay, do we know if that's safe for somebody who's 21 to then all of a sudden go through the puberty and through the bone growth and through there's a natural progression of how your bones grow, your growth plates, your muscle mass, your fertility. You're really messing with nature, and you're also barring that child from future choices. There have to be legal protections of kids. 27 states in the U.S. have already enacted restrictions on gender-affirming care for children, according to the KFF. And so, and people say, well, yeah, but transgender kids have rights. Like I'm looking at this one sign, trans kids deserve care. They do deserve care for their ear infections, for their sore throats, their vaccines, their medical care. Absolutely. But is the kid truly trans? If you have a child that is coming to you saying, I'm not a girl, I'm a boy, ask them why. I had that conversation with my mom when I was 3. I told you I was peeing standing up, peed all over the place. So my mom was about to give me a whooping. And she's like, why would you stand and pee when you're supposed to sit on the toilet? She really thought I was a dumb kid. And I go, because that's how dad pees and I'm going to be like dad, so I need to practice. And my mom's like, what are you talking about? I seriously thought I was going to be like my dad. And my mom's like, no, you're going to grow into a woman. And then my sister runs into the room saying you're going to get boobies and you're going to bleed every month. And I was just horrified by that as a 3-year-old. I didn't want anything to do with my mom. Definitely didn't want anything to do with periods and boobies. I wanted to be like my dad. So in essence, you could say that when I was 3, I wanted to be a dude. What did I do when I was told that's kind of not how it works? Biologically, I'm going to be a female. I accepted it and moved on. I didn't later ask for surgery. I didn't later ask for, and thank God, I was able to have 2 babies, marry my husband. I love who I am. I love being a woman. I may act like a dude. I do prefer more dude things. Love sports, even though girls can love sports too. Not into the pink, but, love the jerseys. Very, very comfortable around guys. But that doesn't mean I want to be a man. Honestly, what changed it for me was hearing about the Titanic. When the men weren't allowed to get in the boats and the girls were. I was like, you know what? I'm good. I'm fine with the girls. I'm fine with the boobies. I will take the boobies. Not a problem as long as I get on the boat. That's, I think, what really did it for me. Now, I'm not saying and simplifying what every kid goes through. But kids always question, is this who I am? Is this who I want to be? And just because a boy may want to be a girl or a girl may want to be a boy doesn't mean you sterilize them. Doesn't mean you put them at health risk with heavy hormones and commit them to a life of needing to be on this medication and not allowing them to have choices later. So, yeah, I don't know why federal funding went to that to begin with. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, don't go away.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
Show 1-877 Doc Dolly, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks again to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, X, The Dr. Dahlia Show, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. Okay. So I, having been a teacher, a professor, and have taught students my whole career, I'm just a little bit confused about the weenieism that we're seeing. And there's this big trend to try to buck original school thinking, where you have grades and you have grade point averages. And I'm mixed on that, because with medical school, I didn't like students failing and not doing well and needing to remediate multiple times, because I'm like, if you're going to be a doctor, okay, you need to know the material. You can't know 70% of the material. You can't know 65.9 and squeak by. You need to know it or you don't move forward. And so I think with medical school, if you miss any question, one, make sure professors are actually teaching you the stuff doctors need to know. But you ensure that person understands what the answer is, learns the answer, is able to regurgitate the answer, and then you can pass them. So I understand why they're looking at more pass-fail with medical school, because but my only concern is you need to be 100% proficient. None of this, I barely got a passing grade. I mean, in some medical schools, a D is passing. I would hate to see a doctor who got D's. That's frightening. So they need to know the material. So as far as I'm concerned, whatever you missed, remediate, make sure you know it, so that when you move on in your medical school training, you are proficient in everything. You have to be proficient. Proficient means you know the material. But interestingly, you're seeing these schools, these colleges start to do away with grades. And why? Well, according to the website of University of Michigan, for their 2027 fall first semester students, they're going to do a pass or no credit rather than letter grades. Why? To, quote, curb the mental health crisis unfolding among college-age individuals, and to help students acclimate to the demands of university life without the pressure of grades affecting their GPA in their first months of campus. Okay, you're not supposed to be going to campus to screw around and to party. You're supposed to be going to college to pursue your education. And why are grades such a culprit in mental health? I forget which country this is. I want to reconfirm this, but somebody had told me that in Australia, if you want to become a doctor or you want to become a certain career path, they test you. And if you don't pass, they don't encourage you to go into those. They encourage you to go into other fields that you might have more of a predilection for. And so at some point, we moved universities from, look, you need to know marketing, you need to know stocks, you need to know medicine, you need to know biology. So for us to know that you're learning, we're taking the test, we're giving you a test, we're seeing how proficient you are. If you know the stuff, if you don't, then we need to figure out how we're teaching, or you might not be a perfect fit for this sort of a degree. That's very valuable stuff. Okay, I mean, let's say I want to be a supermodel. Hypothetically, okay? Just okay, okay, on Mars. Let's say I want to be a supermodel. So I go to supermodel school and they're like, girl, please. I'd like to know if I'm going to fail at it before I put the money into it. Train me to be a supermodel. And if I don't have the goods then that's not for me. Let's say I want to be an acrobat in Cirque du Soleil. If I don't have the ability and I can't do the flips, you're probably not going to be a successful Cirque du Soleil acrobat. That's okay. There are some things I won't be able to do. That's fine. What am I built for? What am I designed for? What am I good at? But it seems to me that the colleges are like, well, we don't really care if you're going to succeed. We don't care if you're going to get a job because we get our money now. We raise our tuition. The government pays us. You keep borrowing. What do we care? But we want you to feel good. And we want to market it. And we want people to think that if they go to our university, they're going to party it up. They're going to get that really good Blue Mountain State experience. And they're going to just, be happy. And no. And I really like the idea. I forget who, I don't know if it was Trump or somebody recommended that the schools be transparent about how many of their graduates actually get jobs. It's interesting. You see a lot of medical schools going, we had a 100% acceptance rate to residency. They don't explain that on the first pass, there were a bunch of students that didn't get in. And they had to work and connive and coax and try to get somebody to take the students. But they only put on their website, 100%. And then they don't talk about how many of their students fail out of residency. I have students call me saying, I dropped out. So where does that get, where's the transparency? And so if you're picking a medical school, you want to know that you're picking a medical school that is going to train you enough where you're not going to fail out of residency. You're not going to get sued. That's actually something I'd like to see with medical schools. All right. What percent of your doctors got sued for negligence or for malpractice? That would be, I think, really, really good. See, I went to the University of Nevada, Reno and UCLA, and I thank God I've never gotten sued. So I credit those two universities for teaching me really, really well. But we're not getting that transparency. So colleges are now going, you know what? Why are we giving you an A or a B or a C? You either pass the class or you don't. And again, I don't mind if the passing grade is proficient. You need to understand biology. You need to understand class, the classifications. You need to understand, we need to know that you have the basic understanding. Then I'm okay with that. But if they're doing it because, we're afraid we're going to hurt your mental health, I think the average human needs to be able to know if they could do something or not for our own survival. So let's say it's caveman days, and I see all the dudes go, I want to go and hunt. And I'm like, okay, I'm with you. And they're like, no, woman, please. And I'm like, no. I want to go and hunt. What are we hunting? Well, we're going to hunt lion. Can you outrun a lion? Ken, if a lion attacks you, can you fight back? I can't. Okay. Well, that just saved my life. You might want to do other things. Maybe go after a zebra or go after fish. I mean, we can't really be honest about each other about what we could do and what we can't. You know, it's very interesting. When I was in Spanish class, I kept mixing up the Spanish with Hebrew because I just do that. If I learn one language, I start to mix it up. And so during open house, my Spanish teacher told my parents that I need a tongue transplant, that I'm not going to learn Spanish well. Now, yo hablo español, más o menos. Yo sabe las palabras malas, muy bien. But my grammar is off, and I'm not as fluent as I want to be. But I have a fluency in Spanish. But back then, did I cry? That I got, it just meant whatever confidence I had, I need to build on that. I need to be better. And humans need that drive. They need to know if they're failing. If everybody's getting an award, if everybody's getting a medal, and they're like, you know what? We don't want to hurt your feelings that you got a C, that you didn't get an A. So we're not going to give A's and C's because we don't want people to get hurt. How do you know you need to improve? Anytime I had an issue with a test or, with the job, I'm like, what do you need me to do to be better? Because I want to be better. So who's going to teach that? If it's not the schools, you definitely don't want them out on the job and getting fired before they learn that. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away.
Hi guys, Dr. Dahlia here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms. Whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping, addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdahlia.com. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Hey, America. How tired are you of mainstream corporate media's biased narratives and manipulated news? Their dishonesty and attempts to influence this generation have been exposed, put on display for anyone who's even half paying attention. But the New American Magazine has been an honest source of news and commentary for over 50 years. This is your opportunity to receive the stalwart of principled journalism at a deep discount. Picture a beautifully published magazine arriving at your doorstep twice a month, packed with insightful stories written with integrity. It's also available digitally on the New American's mobile app. Get up to speed with intelligent coverage from a freedom perspective. Right now, for a limited time, the New American is available to radio listeners at a 25% discount on a new subscription. Visit thenewamerican.com/radio25 and receive 25% off. Subscribe today at thenewamerican.com/radio25.
And we're back on the Dr. Dolly Show, 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So Luigi Mangione, who is on trial, now going through the court system as it pertained to the alleged murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in Manhattan of December 2024, has the 28-year-old now in the spotlight as he's starting to go through his, early trial and hearings. But interestingly, there's a surprise court hearing that his team requested. Mangione's lawyers and prosecutors filed a joint letter requesting the hearing be held at 11 a.m. on Friday in Manhattan Federal Court, and it has been approved. Now, Luigi Mangione is from Maryland, but the murder was allegedly done, or the alleged murder was done on the streets of New York. He's been charged with 2 counts of stalking, resulting in death in federal court, and 2 other counts, including murder through the use of a firearm, those were dismissed. He has also been charged in state court with second-degree murder, multiple counts of criminal possession of a weapon, and criminal possession of a forged instrument. Now, he has pled not guilty to all charges. What they think might be happening is he may accept a plea deal in the federal case. Now, there's double jeopardy, so you can't be tried twice. However, he still could face state criminal charges, depending on if the charges fall under the double jeopardy or not. So federal and state governments can prosecute for the same conduct because they are considered independent of each other. But under New York state law, double jeopardy can come into play when a prior prosecution for the same conduct ends in a conviction by guilty plea or a resolution at trial. So maybe what Luigi Mangioni's team is thinking is that this is not going to end no matter what happens in the federal court. So they might be able to curtail much of the trials and tribulations by doing the plea deal. That might be able to get him off of everything, or end, shall we say, any more prosecution. According to Daily Mail, one potential reason for the surprise hearing is that Mangione has agreed to a plea deal with federal prosecutors so that he could get a lower sentence than if he went to trial. Former federal prosecutor David Weinstein said such an outcome would be a victory for Mangione, who is actually facing death penalty or life without parole. So anything would be a win. And so the plea deal could give him a far lower potential sentence. And so, and then, like I said, protecting him from the double jeopardy. They say they will file a motion to dismiss based on double jeopardy, so there won't be a trial on September 8th if they are able to make this plea deal. So during a February hearing in a state case, Mangione could say 1 + 1 is 2 after the judge said he wanted to proceed to trial. So, I'm looking at this as you have this kid. And to me, I mean, when he was 26 when this happened, travels multiple states to gun down a CEO. You can't, they were trying to think of doing maybe insanity or crime of like passion, something like that sort of thing. But there was premeditation, there was stalking, there was planning, there was he knew where he was going to be, what building he was going to walk out of, where he was going to go. He had a 3D printed gun that he was bragging about. I mean, so this was all planned. So you can't go on, by reason of insanity. Even though to me, anybody who murders somebody in cold blood is insane, there was still, premeditation. That's why there would be a murder charge. But he did this, allegedly. His motive was because of what happened with him and his mom and how he looked at insurance companies. And you find that, so really you need to gun down a CEO of an insurance company. There's got to be more to that. And I think there is with this whole anarchist sort of attitude. Where, like Hassan Piker was saying, capitalists need to bleed in the streets. Don't know his direct quote, but people want blood. They want war. They want, oh my gosh, I mean, you hear people would love for America to go into another civil war. I studied the Civil War. I collected medical antiques from the Civil War. Civil War was horrible. But I think we lost, 630,000 men from bullets, from disease, from consequences of the war. I mean, suicide, desertion. We lost 635,000 men, I believe. And you want that to happen again on a greater scale? There's you would think that people would think like normal people, right? Peace. Just, yes, and sometimes, you can ensure peace by making sure Iran is defanged. I mean, sometimes you do have to, do some aggressive moves to ensure longer lasting peace. But The average person, you would think, doesn't want mayhem. But that's not what I'm seeing. People want fight, 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 blood, riots. They want that. Whether you call them anarchists, whether you call them socialists or fascists or whoever. And somehow this young man who had his whole life ahead of him, from what I understand was a good student, popular, decides to take somebody's life. And now his life is essentially over. And rather than young people learning from this, they idolize him. He's got money thrown at him. People are crowdfunding. He's got groupies, people wanting to marry him. And people think this guy is a hero. Okay, you're a hero if you kill Hitler. But a man who is trying to manage an insurance company, run an insurance company, no, you're not a hero, especially when you shoot him in cold blood. And I get people are ticked off at insurance companies. As a doctor, it's not fun to fight with an insurance company to get them to cover what your patient needs. The whole concept of insurance sucks. I'm paying you, your company, to ask my doctor to charge me less. Why can't I just talk to my doctor? Leave the middleman out. And I did. I worked with a lot of patients who were cash pay. We treated everybody the same. Everybody got the same discount. And they got a pretty good discount. Rather than having to pay for insurance to talk to me to pay me less. The concept is off. The reason why that exists is, let's say you need total hysterectomy or cancer treatment and you can't afford it. So you need somebody else to pay for that. Well, if you're going to have somebody else pay for your expensive medical care, the only way they're going to have the money to do that is if people are giving them money that don't need medical care. So the system relies on people getting screwed over, where they pay and they pay and they pay into a system, and the insurance company hopes they never have to collect so that they could use those funds for somebody who's sick. That's kind of the way the system works. It's not a good system. But I also don't think government deciding to promise they're going to pay for everybody's health care and then doesn't, and then people are just waiting months, years, or being rationed or triaged, that's not good either. We need to figure out how to have medical costs cheaper. Trump did a good job lowering drug costs, but we got to figure out how to do cancer treatment cheaper, how to do dialysis cheaper. Because those individuals are obviously taking more money out of the system than putting in. And they need us putting money in so that and I don't think there's enough people putting money in. So, watch for this anarchist movement, because Luigi Mangione is a part of that. And we'll see what happens with his plea deal. But there were a lot of people who wanted to copycat after that. So there needs to be consequences for what he did. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, don't go away.
Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.